Taking professional photos on cell phones. This topic is controversial among photographers. If someone posts a photo taken with a cell phone and asks, "How can I improve my photography skills?" it doesn't matter how good the photo is, someone will inevitably respond, "You can start by getting a real camera." There's derogatory terms in the photography community like phone-ographer that make a clear distinction between phone users and real photographers. And I admit that I myself have participated in this camera elitism from time to time, particularly right after I bought my first professional camera and I started looking down on phone users almost immediately, despite using a phone myself only weeks prior. As soon as I graduated into the echelons of real photographers, I began wielding my newfound title as a cudgel against other artists. But in the years since then, I have examined my beliefs, reassessed my position on phone photography, and I now have a different perspective on it. And, in fact, I recently challenged myself to go out and take some professional pictures with my phone, a practice which I have wholeheartedly avoided for the majority of my photography career, and you know what? The results were pretty good. It's almost like your gear doesn't actually matter because it's the artist making the art. So today I want to talk about phone photography, how it works, what are the drawbacks and advantages, what sets it apart from other forms of photography, and why it might be worth taking another look at that camera that's always in your pocket. I will also share some insights on tools and techniques that can be used to enhance your phone photography, particularly these clip-on filters from K&F Concept. They sent me these to test out a little while ago, and I've had a lot of fun with them. And I was thinking a lot about mobile phone photography while I was out shooting with them, as you can imagine, and that inspired the topic of today's video. So I will feature these a bit today. We have the 1/4 strength black diffusion filter and the CPL filter, and all of the photo examples that you'll see in today's video were taken with one or the other of these filters. And I'll talk about them a bit later on, as well as discussing some other tools that you can use to enhance your phone photography. If all of that sounds good, stick around. Remember to leave a like on this video if you like it. You can subscribe to my channel to see more like it, and you can leave a comment letting me know what you think. Have you ever gotten a fantastic photo on your cell phone? How did it make you feel emotionally as an artist, knowing that it was captured on a phone? Let me know down below. And one more thing, this is my new YouTube setup. What do you guys think? It's gonna be a collection of images, some that I took, some that fans of the channel have sent in, some that are from artists that I've featured or discussed on the channel before. You know, I talk about a lot of photographs. I thought it'd be fun to have a bunch of them featured on the wall. Right now, it is not that. Right now, it is just a collection of images from various photo walls that I've had over the years that I put up. But long term, I think it'll be more of a collage of channel-related imagery. So we'll see. That's gonna be fun, and stay tuned, but this is what you get for now. But let me know what you think of the new setup, because this is gonna be kind of permanent, and I'm pretty excited to have a desk that I don't want to touch because it'll make noise in the microphone, but it's all very exciting. Anyways, jumping back into the video with part 1 here called How It Works. So, phone cameras are pretty different from professional cameras in a number of ways. The biggest difference, I think, is the sensor size. So you have this light-sensitive piece of material that's responsible for reading and recording an image. And on a full-frame DSLR camera, such as this one that I've conveniently placed here, the sensor is typically 35mm by 24mm, which is, not coincidentally, the same size as a frame of 35mm film. On a cell phone, that sensor is much smaller, approximately 6mm by 4.5mm. So why is it so much smaller? Well, a bigger sensor needs a bigger lens, which needs more separation between the lens and the sensor, which starts to look more camera-shaped and less phone-shaped. You also need more processing capacity. A larger sensor creates more data, and that data needs to be processed and stored. And that's going to be an issue for photos, not to mention videos, which are a much taller order. I mean, look at the size of this camera, right? This is not this big because we like big cameras. It's this big because it has a lot of components inside of it that are necessary to perform its functions. You cannot make something shaped like this that has all of the performance and functionality of something shaped like this. So phone cameras have to make a lot of compromises. They have tiny sensors and tiny lenses with very little distance between the two, meaning that you don't have a lot of opportunity for depth of field. Depth of field being that blurry bokeh effect that you get when some things are in focus and other things aren't. And this is the number one way you can tell if something was shot on a phone. Everything in the image will always be in focus. These compromises related to size and distance certainly limit what is possible to capture on a phone. And I mean, depth of field is like your whole personality when you get your first professional camera, right? Like, I don't think I shot anything at an aperture setting other than 1.8 until I started shooting in studio with strobes like 3 years into my photography career. So for a long time, the limitations and compromises in cell phones meant that phone photography was very one note. You could get a very flat, very low resolution image with your phone camera, which was obviously worse than the images with complex depth and higher resolution that are possible with a professional camera. However, in recent years, phone manufacturers have begun to innovate, and they're compensating for the drawbacks inherent in cell phone design through the wonders of modern computational technology. And by that, I mean that they're using computational tricks to simulate the physical effects that you get from traditionally shaped cameras. Depth of field is a big one. Because cell phones struggle to get natural variations in depth of field, phone manufacturers have developed portrait mode, which automatically selects the subject of your photo and blurs out the background, which replicates the depth of field effect that you get naturally from shooting at a low aperture. Another computational trick is this HDR look. And you may have noticed this in action when you take a photo with your cell phone and there's a little wheel that says processing, and then a few seconds later it spits out this perfectly exposed, crystal sharp image that looks way better than the original image you took. This is because your phone is actually taking a burst of photos at different exposure settings and then layering them together to create a perfectly exposed, sharp, dynamic image, which is actually a composite. Your phone will also use this technique to fudge resolution. The sensors are very, very tiny, and so the images are naturally low resolution as a result. But your phone will take many tiny images and layer them all together to essentially composite in details and produce a much higher resolution image than would be possible in a single frame. Another example of this multi-shot layering technique is nighttime mode, where you have to hold your phone as still as possible, and it takes a second or two to capture the scene, and then it thinks for a second and spits out a properly exposed nighttime image. These computational techniques are pretty cool, right? And they're a big part of why phone cameras keep getting better, despite the physical limitations that the shape of a phone places on sensor and lens size. But that brings me to part 2 of today's video, which is the drawbacks. And the main drawback of these processes is that they're not really in your control. If you have ever tried to get an artistic shot on your cell phone of like someone's silhouette against a bright sky, and you take the picture and then you see the little processing wheel and it spits out an image where both the sky and the person are perfectly exposed. Your image is technically perfect, but artistically lacking. Or you want an image where just the front petals of a flower are in focus, right? But the portrait mode is selecting the whole flower, and there's no real way to tell it just to select the front petals and blur out the back of the flower. And also, you don't get like this gradual blur, you get like either blurry or not blurry. There's no like levels of focus in your image. And you know, these cases sound very specific when I describe them, but this lack of control will drive you crazy if you're used to having full control over everything that your camera is doing. And I think that this is reason number 1 why camera-wielding photographers look down on phone users. If you are 100% happy and content using a phone for your artistic photography, you're 100% content to hand over the creative reins to a computer. You're surrendering control over your creative process in exchange for convenience. And like, it doesn't bother you that all of your photos have this ultra-processed HDR look with absolutely no depth of field. And my response to that, I guess, would be that actually some people do really like that look and would choose to make photos that look like that anyway. So for them, using a phone just saves them the time and energy that it would take in Photoshop to composite the images manually. And these people who are using these phones this way are still finding interesting subject matter to photograph and thinking about composition, etc. And that is a pretty important part of photography that the phone is not assisting with. My problem with phone photographers of this variety, and I do have a problem, I'm not a saint, even though I'm working to overcome my anti-phone prejudice. My problem is the people who do not know that their phones are doing these sophisticated computations to produce their images. They think their images are like raw and unedited. And then they pick up a traditional camera and they try it out and their photos are poorly exposed and out of focus, and they go online and they say, wow, this camera really sucks. My phone takes way better photos. One of the most egregious examples of this I talked about in a previous video. Samsung was caught using AI to enhance their images, essentially subbing in a better, more detailed photo and trying to convince its users that they had taken that photo. And of course, this led to a whole wave of dickheads online calling pro photographers idiots for spending thousands of dollars on telephoto lenses when this Samsung phone takes better photos anyway. So yeah, that irks me. But I think that the solution isn't elitism and looking down on people who use phones. Rather, I think it's educating people about the tools that they're using. Here's what a camera can do and what it can't do. Here's what a phone can do and what it can't do. And empowering people to make the decision that is right for them. Once we camera-wielding photographers get over our hang-ups about mobile photography, we might find that there's a lot of fun to be had by embracing the medium for what it is, instead of focusing on what it isn't. And that brings me to part 3 of today's video, embracing mobile photography. So, as I see it, mobile photography contains a unique set of parameters. And I love creating good art within restrictive parameters. It's like a big part of my creative process, and it's one of the underlying themes on this channel. I did have to shift my mindset a little bit during this challenge. I had to shift it away from my camera-centric viewpoint that says depth of field equals good, flat equals bad. Because for this challenge, I wanted to embrace the features that make mobile photography unique. So I sought out compositions that could benefit from this flattening effect. I shot through a lot of shop windows because they create this layered light look that comes out really cool when everything is in focus. And I went out mostly at night because I wanted to make use of lights and reflections to frame my compositions. I shot all of these nighttime photos through the K&F Concept Black Diffusion 1/4 strength filter, which clips on like that. And a few of my daytime photos were shot using this CPL filter. Of the two filters, I preferred the Black Diffusion filter. It gives this nostalgic, hazy vibe that is difficult to replicate through editing. And speaking of editing, I edited all of these photos with the free version of VSCO. Yes, VSCO, the 2014 Tumblr editing app that took the world of mobile photography by storm with this ultra-faded aesthetic. It is still around, it's still free, it's still very 2014. It still has all of these super nostalgic filter options, and unfortunately, most of the more modern, contemporary ones are locked behind a paywall. But I wanted to edit my photos with a free app because the point of this challenge for me was to show that you can make great photos with just a phone. Like, you don't need an expensive camera, you don't need an expensive editing software subscription. You can just do it for free on your phone. And it felt like if I pulled all the photos into Photoshop after and like dodge and burned and like layer mask and did all these crazy things to them, that would not be in the spirit of the challenge. So yes, all of the photos that you see on screen were taken on mobile and edited with a free app. You can take great photos with the gear that you have right now. Do not listen to dickhead gear folks telling you that your lens is crap and your sensor is too small. Just go out and start taking pictures and get comfortable with the creative process before you start trying to keep up with the Joneses and their $9,000 pro cameras. But if you do like gear and you do want some fun bits and bobs, I can recommend a few things that are fun with mobile. So I mentioned the K&F Concepts filters. They have a lot of great options. They have ones that change the color and brightness of your images. You can also get prism filters that warp your images in interesting ways. I haven't tried these, but they look like a lot of fun. Do not try the macro and fisheye lens attachments. I have seen these in person and they do not work very well. So save your money on those ones. But you can get a star filter that clips onto your phone. It turns all points of light into these little stars, either 4-point or 6-point or 8-point, depending on which one you buy. And there is a clip-on version that clips onto mobile, so that's super cool. And another piece of gear that is like not meant for mobile photography, but very simple, I carried around for a long time. It was a small handheld mirror, and that is so that you can get these classic mirrored shots, right? And honestly, this is a fun choice for street photos and portraits. And that kind of brings me to my last section here, which is talking about mobile phone tricks. I'm just kind of shoehorning this in at the end because I didn't know how to incorporate it into the video, but it is kind of a fun thing to talk about. So here's a few of my favorite mobile phone tricks. The mirrored puddle photo is kind of a classic, and there are like 20,000 mobile phone photography hack videos out there that will show you this hack. Most of those videos are clickbait garbage, but there are some fun hacks that you can do with a mobile phone that are a lot harder to do with a traditional camera. Particularly, you can have fun with panorama mode. I didn't play with this one too much, but there's hours of entertainment here. Playing with shadows, warping perspective, taking strange selfies and portraits. This stuff takes seconds on a phone or hours in Photoshop. Definitely take advantage of this if you're on mobile. Another cool mobile specific trick that is way harder and more expensive with an actual camera is the ultra wide angle lens. It totally warps everything in frame, but again, it's using this computational image stacking to create a full image. So doing this with the wide angle lens on my camera gives me this circle around everything. which is its own vibe, like people do like that. But if you're shooting quirky social media content, this wide angle is a cool tool to play with. You see people doing this big hands thing, the peering down thing, the big walk thing, all with the wide angle lens. I am gonna do a video one day where I test out viral photography hacks, and I sense that the mobile phone camera will play a leading role in that video. But for now, hopefully I have left you guys with some inspiration and a new appreciation for mobile phone photography. I guess my overall takeaway is to remind you not to look down on other artists for the tools that they choose to use, not to feel superior because you spent more money on a camera, and not to forget that the camera in your pocket is a worthwhile tool in your arsenal. I'll leave a link down below if you're interested in picking up some of the filters I featured in today's video, and I'll have a new video out hopefully next week. I think we're going to be talking about the hard flash look. Is it making a comeback? It is, and I'll tell you about it. So I'll see you then, and in the meantime, I want you all to stay sharp and don't forget to keep shooting. Bye, guys.